not talk a whole lot the rest of the week. But today is one day that I do have to talk a lot. So we'll try to get through that as soon as possible. I don't want to bore you to death, but there are some things that we need to talk about, and some things that we need to take care of. So we will do that. But first, we have two now, so hang on a second. We have two quick presentations. First of all, Dr. Alan Steele, if you want to come up and say something. Dr. Steele has worked with Carleton University. He's a professor of electronics here and is the sponsor of the Amateur Radio Club, and would like to welcome you. So, Dr. Steele.
Thank you, thanks. Yeah, so on behalf of Carleton, I'd just like to welcome you all. What we had, the national anthems early on, what we often usually do here in any of the events that we have, is we do acknowledge that we're actually on traditional and unceded land of the Algonquin Nation. So if you want to know more about maybe the traditional lands that you're on, I would encourage you to have a look at native-land.ca, which covers the whole world, and you might be able to sort of see the native land of maybe where you're making contacts. A little bit about Carleton, just to sort of orientate you. You know where we are. We're in Ottawa. The origins of the university are that it's community-based. All right, so it's great that we've got a community of amateur radio that's from around the world, that's here, that's expanding our community. But it's community-based. Started out of returning veterans from the Second World War, and we've grown considerably since then. You're going to be mostly in the Faculty of Engineering Design, so just a little bit about that. We've got 4 engineering departments. We've got electronics, systems and computer engineering. We are unusual in that we don't have a normal electrical and computer engineering department. We are 2 separate, but we work closely together. We also got civil and environmental engineering, and we've got mechanical and aerospace engineering. So it's very well known for the aerospace engineering that we do there. We also have 3 design schools too. So we've got a School of Architecture, a School of Industrial Design, and also a School of Information Technology too. So you'll find that mostly in the building of Mackenzie and in the Minto Centre, and sometimes in Canal. So the campus is large. If you get in the tunnels, you might get lost, all right? So we'll just ask anybody, it's a friendly campus. We're fairly quiet at the moment because we're in summer term, but I really do hope you enjoy your time here at Carleton. If you've got any specific questions or any interests about seeing facilities here, for example, we've got a semiconductor fabrication facility within my department, then shout out and we'll see what we can do, and that will be on top of the tour. I think you're going to have.
Yeah, Friday we have an hour set aside for a tour.
So welcome to Carleton.
Thank you. We have one other surprise presentation that they had to pick me up off the floor, I think, when I found out about it. So we'll see if I get this right. Yosipa? Yosipa?
Yes.
Okay. Yosipa and Leon, if you would come forward, they have a presentation to make. And I'm still in shock.
It's just a few sentences about, we brought a gift. I mean, it's not a gift, but we brought it here. Has anyone heard of the YOTA key before?
No. I have. I've been
Okay, you all know that YOTA camps started in Europe. Like, this year is the 11th one, I think. And when it was in Italy in 2015, we got, as a present for all the future YOTA camps, a golden Bengali key.
Oh, wow.
And we bring it to all the YOTA camps in Europe. And this year, we decided to bring it also here. So this was already in Italy, UK, Croatia, Bulgaria. I'm missing something.
South Africa.
Austria and South Africa. And now it's in Canada. So you will have the opportunity to work with it in Ham. I think you will put it in chat.
Yeah, of course.
So it's like in Europe, it's like, oh, YOTA here, and it's used only on camps. So when it isn't, it's in this box for a year, and then for 10 days we use it. So
Here, hold it up. Let's get a picture.
Yeah.
Read it here.
yay.
I can hand over this too. Don't drop it. Precious. It's precious.
Not today.
It's what the world is made out of.
Yeah.
Thank you. Katie, you'll be happy now. Wow. I knew Philip had a surprise for me. I didn't expect that one. Well, I want to talk a little bit about YOTA. Some of you may not be familiar with YOTA, and so I want to talk a little bit about what YOTA is, what it isn't, and a little bit about what that means for you. We've seen this data that in this slide that Sterling made, and I keep reusing it, that our service and hobby is aging, and we're trying to really kind of focus in on that age range of 15 to 24, trying to get things moving in an upward direction, and we've been successful in getting that. And so recruitment is a big thing, to get more youth into ham radio. But at the same time, we are losing a lot of those young hams that we recruit. And so we need something to keep those young hams around, and that's why we're here, is we want to make your lives better in ham radio than they are right now. And I've had personal experience with that. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I know what it's like to be that one person in your club of 40, 50 people that's under 30. And there are many of you out there, and some of you watching online, and you feel alone and disconnected. That's the thing that I hear the most. And so this is a chance for you to spend a week together to learn from each other, and that's really what we're trying to do. So we're not a club. You can't join YOTA. It's a group of amateurs working to promote youth in ham radio and keep youth in ham radio, and that's what we're about. As our guests from Europe have told us, this started in Europe. It became eventually a project of IRU Region 1, and we have sought out a lot of help, and IRU Region 2 is helping us connect with some other countries, and for the first time we have finally accomplished our goal of having international participation. COVID stopped us for a couple of years, and visas still prevented two from getting here, but for the first time we are finally international. And that was one of the big goals when we set out to start the Americas camp. And so we're happy to say that this was the year that changed. So leading that group is Philip Springer, DK6SP. And we would love to have had him here, but He did send a video message for you all. He is the chair of the IRU Region 1 Youth Working Group, which is responsible for Youngsters on the Air, which Sam and Sterling went over to Austria back in 2016. Is that right? 2016, Sterling?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And stole everything. I mean, copied everything. I mean, utilized their resources, and you know, brought back the idea of doing this. So we got a few words here from Philip.
Hey YOTA Region 2, my name is Philip, YOTA Kilo 6 Sierra Papa, from Germany, and I'm the chair of the International Amateur Radio Union Region 1 Youth Working Group. So this is basically the equivalent working group to the Americas, but we are working with the IRU member societies in Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and Northern Asia. In the name of this working group, I want to wish you all an amazing experience during the 3rd edition of a Region 2 YOTA Summer Camp. To the participants, have fun, enjoy the time, and make new friends. It is definitely worth it. We are very glad to partner up with the YOTAs worldwide, and thus we have invited YOTAs from Regions 2 and 3 to our camps on a regular basis before, who then took up the momentum and brought it back to their regions. So we are very glad to be sending 2 participants, Josipa, 983 Golf Victor Japan, and Leon, DO3 Oscar November from Europe, to the Americas for the first time ever. Thus, please have fun and enjoy your stay at the Region 2 YOTA Summer Camp in Canada. We are looking forward to seeing pictures and hearing all of your stories during your week in Canada. Further, please use the YOTA Camp as a stepping stone to your amateur radio future. So many great stories can be told from former participants already. A big thank you to all the organizers and sponsors who made this camp possible for you all. You really put in a lot of effort and invested a lot of free time. Many thanks to all of you for the extraordinarily great work. But now, I don't want to keep you any longer. Have fun, enjoy it. I hope to catch you all on the air with your special event YOTA Station 73s, and see you later.
And I've been messaging Philip the whole time here. He's staying up late as usual. I'll be up at like 11, 12 o'clock, and all of a sudden Philip messages me. I'm like, you're in Germany, that's 6 hours. It's like 6 a.m., why are you still up? But yeah, that's Philip. So Philip, thank you for staying up again, and thanks. So, just to clear up any confusion, there's youngsters on the air, there's youth on the air. It is purely a cultural difference. It is not a different idea or anything. It's just that in Europe, youth is usually associated with troubled youths. And so they use youngsters. And then over here, when you say youngster, it's like, you know, you must be 284 years old. And so it doesn't translate really well as far as the connotation goes. So one of the things that was recommended in Sam and Sterling's report from Austria was we should probably change that word, and so we did. And so that's the difference. That's why, you know, some people say YOTA is youngsters and others is youth. The big thing is that this is a real shift, and this is something that I had to learn as a teacher, was, you know, that if I do everything for you, you're missing out on the opportunity to figure it out. And so if I sit you down at an HF rig and start spinning the wheel and tune up the amplifier and get you on a frequency and, you know, have everything there ready for you, guess what? You just missed out on being able to, you know, hook up the radio and figure out the cabling and you know, spinning the big knob. And that's a problem. And so the idea of shifting the activities to being youth-led is the primary focus of YOTA. And that's what made YOTA successful, was that it was a peer group. So yes, I've had to tell many world-class ham radio operators, thanks, but no thanks. They want to come and teach and conduct these, workshops that would be absolutely wonderful. But we know from scientific research that you all are more likely to ask each other than to ask an adult. And as a teacher, that frustrates me because I'm like begging and pleading and begging for you to ask questions, and then, you don't. So I'm not giving up, but we know that you're going to get more out of it with the peer interaction. And so I'm going to be here all week, by all means. I will probably be the last one to sleep every night. I will be all over the place. But I'm not going to be teaching anything. So if you have a question, you come up and ask. But I'm putting this all together for you, and then I'm getting out of your way. And so, you'll see me around, but I will not be in your way. Okay? And see, even Siri didn't understand that. And some hams don't understand that. And so that's kind of the message that we're trying to send, and Siri figured it out. Yeah, we know, Siri. I came across this slide a few days ago. The member society in my country, the United States, is the ARRL, the American Radio Relay League, and they did a member survey just recently. This data just came out in the last week or two, because they're getting ready to raise dues, but at the same time they asked a lot of other questions about, the future of ham radio. And we've focused so much on Elmers, mentors, trying to, have those. And I remember my Elmer, and he was one of the dearest friends I ever had in ham radio, and did so much for me. But this survey shows that what we're doing with YOTA is much more successful, because if you look, mentoring is 4% on this graph. What, if anything, may help you stay active in ham radio? Your mentor was the response for 4% of the people surveyed out of this. Down here, the biggest part, 24%, other hams who share my interests and help with my own station and equipment. That's why we're here, is to get you all together so that we can build an even bigger youth community. There are all kinds of youth communities out there, and I hope that you learn about some of those this week. But we're trying to build a deeper one. It's not the only one. We're trying to build a deeper one. And we want you to realize that there are other people doing these things that you're interested in. And so you too can do what a lot of adults do, and that is, hey, if I've got a question about FT8, I know I'm going to call this person. If I've got to try to figure out
how to decode slow scan TV, I'm going to call Grace. If I need to know about Long Island CW Club, I'm going to go to Katie. I'm sorry, Cather Swine. That's another story you can ask Katie about later. Those are things that, you know, I know people, and I know that they're doing those things, and that's what we want to do this week. We want you to get to know each other's interests. You know, if I want to go raise my contesting rate, I'm going to go talk to Leon. So you all need to get to know each other, and so a lot of the activities that we're doing this week have absolutely nothing to do with ham radio. It's a chance for you to socialize. It's a chance for you all to have some fun together, get to know each other, and build a community. And that's really important. And this data, you know, I just found it so cool that 24% say other hams who share my interests is what keeps them in ham radio. So we have some goals. 50% or more of our sessions are led by hams in their 30s or under. We are darn near 100%. I think we're at like 90 something. So we have far exceeded that goal. We want to build that stronger community I was talking about. We want to build a youth leadership group to take more of the responsibility of running the camp on. I am not doing this forever, and my wife reminded me of this rather bluntly about a week ago, that, you know, I can't do this forever, and I can't. And so we've added some young people to the working group and added some things and started kind of branching this out to where it can be self-sustaining. And then you all teach more people to take over for you, so that it continues to, you know, take care of itself. And that's one of the things that we're introducing this year is a thing called Train the Trainer, which our Region 1 people are familiar with, where we get together and share ideas of what's working in different places. And so we're going to have that as an optional thing for Monday night and Tuesday night to meet with me. And we'll talk a little bit about training trainers to go out and do sub-regional camps and to, you know, keep this camp going. So that's some of our goals here. So, you know, I talked about relationships, and you saw the video from Philip. You know, I've made a lot of good friends, and we know that Philip's sitting here watching us, but you know, he always contacts me and says, "Hey, Friedrichshafen's coming up. Can you record a video for me to, you know, let you welcome everybody, because you know you're not going to be here." And so, you know, record a video and send it to him, just like he did for you all. And so this year when he did that, Julie and I were on vacation at Disney World, and I said, "When do you need that? Can I do that when I get home?" And then I had this crazy idea, and whenever I have those crazy ideas, Julie's like, "Oh no, what did I get myself into now?" But there was a friend of mine that I ran into, and so I thought I'd share the video that I sent this year for Friedrichshafen. Hi everyone, this is Neil Rapp, WB9 VPG, and I'm here to welcome you and to thank you for all of your support for YOTA. Here in the Americas, we're excited about all of our expansion. We're getting ready to expand in 2024, and we've just grown so much from learning everything from the youngsters on the air program. In fact, we've grown so much that
we've built our own ham radio themed amusement park. We're here at the brand new YOTA World.
Oh, it gets better.
Well, okay, not really. Philip sent me a message and said, hey, I need you to record a video to say hello to everybody at Friedrichshafen. And so I was on vacation here in Florida at Walt Disney World. And so I said, yeah, okay, well, this will make an interesting video. But one of the big things that we really talk about with YOTA is building strong relationships between young amateurs. And here with me today in the Skyliner is a friend of mine from ham radio. He is a ride control Imagineer for the Disney parks. Dr. Andy Maluzzi, KK4LWR. Now, Andy is going to be one of our session leaders at this summer's YOTA camp in Ottawa, Canada in July. So, Andy, talk a little bit about relationships in ham radio and how those are important for young people.
Neil and I got connected in amateur radio about a decade ago when I was in college, and we co-authored a QST article. And from that connection, we never met in person for like the first 3 or 4 years, but then we finally met up one year at Dayton Hamvention and got to connect. And from that, we have become great friends. Whenever I'm up in Ohio or Neil's down here in Florida, we try to connect, say hi. We just had dinner last night, we spent some time on the Skyliner now. It's just fun to hang out and do stuff even outside of amateur radio. So it's Weekly France here over at Epcot Center. I wanted to share that Neil has recruited me to help with camp now since the inception here in the Americas. So I'll be back at it this summer with Neil, with my brother Tony, KD at RTT, and many others up in Canada to make YOTA Camp in the Americas happen again.
All right, so as you can see, we're developing a lot of relationships between a lot of young people and me. But I used to be young once.
Still are.
Yeah, still at heart. So we really are growing. We are expanding the size of camp next year. But as for the theme park, give us about 20 years and then maybe you can ask us again how the theme park's coming along. And maybe we can get YOTA World. But for now, have a great ham radio Friedrichshafen and 7-3.
73.
When do we start building YOTA World?
He's not allowed.
Hi, Evan.
She says no.
Oh, Christy says no. Well, if you're not familiar with us, youthontheair.org, we really try to promote anything with youth and ham radio, not just our camp, not just our YOTA contest and December YOTA month that we do along with Region 1, but we try to link to all youth events so that you can find where those things are and connect you with those things. So make sure you check that out. We are also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Hi, YouTube. YouTube's back there. Yes, everyone's got that running. And Katie and Abby Kimmy over here are our PR managers. And so they will be asking you questions throughout the week and probably wanting to interview you and get your pictures and all that kind of thing. So they've been doing a great job. We just started that up a few months ago. And so they've been doing a great job. So you can find their stuff out there online as well. So Speaking of YOTA activities, we don't just do the summer camp, although that's the big thing. We do have December YOTA month, and on Friday, we're going to talk about that just a few minutes with Case and with Blake. They'll be on Zoom. They couldn't be here, but they'll be on Zoom to talk to you a little bit about December YOTA month. And then the YOTA contest, which we've got the big banner up back here. There's 3 rounds to that, and the second round is the day after you leave. So we hope to hear many of you on the second round of the YOTA contest. So if you're interested in the contest, make sure you check that out. We have a bazillion people to thank because this could not happen without them. And our titanium sponsors are responsible for most of the cash funding and equipment funding for this camp. The first camp that we put on cost about $1,100 US per person. The second one was about $1,800 per person, and I'm not sure what this one's going to be, but probably somewhere in that neighborhood. We'll see after we get all the bills paid and do all the numbers, but you know, you all were charged $100, and yes, you had to get your own transportation, but there's, you know, about $1,800 that you didn't have to pay, and that was a result of ARDC, ICOM, DX Engineering, and Worldwide Radio Operators Foundation. So they are sponsoring us to do this, and we could not do it without them. So if you see these people around at Hamfest or whatever, make sure you say something. And of course, Rose LeBlanc is here from ICOM, and Rose has been working non-stop since before we got here. She got here earlier on Wednesday. We didn't get here till Wednesday night, and has just jumped in and done everything imaginable, not just radio gear, but hauling stuff from room to room and building to building and everything. So make sure you say a thank you to ICOM for sending Rose and being with us and providing the gear that you will get tomorrow. The YASME Foundation and IRU Region 2 sponsored travel for people outside of the US and Canada to be here. So we want to thank them for supporting the travel needs to make this a truly international event. Heil, Ham Radio, Bob Heil's always said, you know, whenever you need something, you just pick up the phone and call. And I do, and it's here. So thank you to them. And Xtronic supplies us with our soldering stations. So we want to thank them. And Radio Club of America and the Tennessee Contest Group. So thank you to all of them, and thank you to all of you watching online. Just 2 nights ago, I got a donation that came in that I haven't had a chance to reply to yet, but we've been really fortunate to have a lot of gracious sponsors and individuals. A couple of the most heartfelt moments in this past year, as far as YOTA goes, were a couple of silent keys that their family sent us the money from the sale of the ham gear and said, you know, we know that they really believed in YOTA, and so we want you to have this. And I was just taken back because they believe in what we're doing, and so I'm just very thankful for that. tons of people to thank. Carlton and Dr. Steele, Radio Amateurs of Canada, the Diefenbunker Museum that you'll see a little later in the week, Youngsters on the Air, Eris has been great about getting us contacts and working with us, at Dayton especially, and so we thank them. Jack McElroy and Tom McElroy could not be here this week. They were supposed to do our ballooning. They're the balloon team, and Audrey, Jack's sister, is doing an internship over in France this summer, and they had a chance to go visit her, and it happened to be this week. So they went ahead and prepared everything, shipped everything up here for YOTA to use on Tuesday. So they shot videos of everything and still, put everything together to make sure you have a nice opportunity to do a balloon launch this week. Ward Silver has always stepped in when we've had issues here and there and some funding. Ward's hunted them down and found them, so thanks Ward. AMSAT, Joe Eisenberg, KCRNEB, Joe, actually 3D printed all of the CW keys that you're going to be making tomorrow, and the little call sign plates, whatever you want to call them, to remind you of the VE3 YOTA call sign. So thanks Joe. Bill Brown does a lot of the ballooning. He's kind of the mastermind behind that, and so he's been involved in supplying our trackers and advising the McElroys about that. Temporarily offline, and the Coffee and Ham Radios, they got a team together to 3D print parts for your antennas and came up with the antenna kits and donated all those. So thank you. As well as Black Hole Antennas, they wound your toroids for you, which is a tedious process and time-consuming process, and you probably wouldn't be able to finish your antenna in time. I'm sure you could finish it, but maybe not in time if it weren't for them. So thanks to Matt. VA 6AM got a nice order of filters for our POTA activation because we're going to have 14 or 15 stations all on the air at the same time, so we've got some bandpass filters. And Tower Electronics for helping out with connectors and all the little stuff. I don't know why Jocelyn's video came in this way, but it came in sideways.
Computers are more trouble than
It came in right, and as soon as I play it, it goes sideways. So I turned it sideways, and now it plays right. So, but these are the people who make the decisions about camp. Many of them are over in this area and back in that area. But these are the people who do that. We started off with the four of us, Sam, Sterling, Jocelyn, myself, to get the ball rolling, and then we added campers as we recruited them to be on staff to be a part of this. And so we want to thank you. Some of them could not be here, but we still thank you for your input in making the decisions so that this is becoming more and more a youth-led camp. Jocelyn could not be here at the last minute, and he sent a video as well, so we'll hear from Jocelyn.
Hi, this is Jocelyn, KD8VRX, also known as Just 9 Victor Alpha 2 Victor Romeo X-Ray. Due to circumstances out of my control, I'm not able to be at camp this week, but I hope you have a great time at camp. I hope you enjoy Canada, and I hope that you take the time to make new connections with all your peers that are there, and you form all those new connections. I'm to being at camp next year, and I'll be on the air trying to chase you down and make contacts with you. Have a great camp and looking forward to next year. 73.
Okay, so, Sam, I have a job for you if you don't mind. Can you come up here? We've got a picture that we need to send Jocelyn. Now, Jocelyn, when he was at the past 2 camps, would always be showing people around. And so whenever he was showing people around, he was, pointing to this, pointing to that. And so, we started going through Sam's photos, and it's like, okay, every picture of Jocelyn is Jocelyn pointing at something. And so I made some funny comment about, we ought to just create a whole Google photo album of Jocelyn pointing at things. And Sterling says, way ahead of you, he'd already made one. So Sam, if you would, everybody point somewhere, and then we're going to send him the picture. So can you take the picture of everybody?
I'll get everybody. And
Everybody just point somewhere, wherever.
keep pointing.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Jocelyn's probably watching too, knowing him.
Now everybody
Oh
go
my gosh.
watch.
What are you doing?
Now
So
watch the Telegram chat, everybody.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, he is Canadian, and so he was really looking forward to coming back. He used to work in Ottawa, and so he said, "You got to make sure you go to Canadian Tire when you go to Canada." And I'm like, "What in the world? Canadian Tire, really?" So he was telling us about it. I think we were all on a Zoom call one night when he was telling us about it. And so it's like, okay, if you need something, you can get that at Canadian Tire. So we're like looking at it, and so Ruth and Julie and I went to Canadian Tire the other night and got some things, and Andy calls me, and Andy says, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm at Canadian Tire," and he goes, "Oh, what's wrong?"
That's what they actually wrong with the tires.
Yeah, and so we're like, okay, well, no, it's a tire store, but 3/4 of it isn't tires, it's other stuff. And so Jocelyn gave me 5 cents worth of Canadian Tire money. So I'm happy.
Jocelyn says that's awesome, thank you.
Oh, that's awesome, thank you. Okay, all right, so there we go. So,
Hi, this is Jocelyn.
oh, he's talking again.
You might want to clarify that we need Canadian Tire now.
Yes, we need Canadian Tire now because we got a low tire this morning as we tried to get here, so we had to deal with that. So yeah, tomorrow we need tire repair. So our camp staff, I introduced Rose already from ICOM. If you have questions about ICOM gear, Rose is your person to talk to. Rose can help you out with that. Or if not, she'll come up with an answer that, will make you think that she knows what she's doing. I don't know. No, Rose spends a lot of her time training people on ICOM gear, so she's a good person to have here this week. Brian, SEWB9QVR, is one of my childhood friends, and he unfortunately could not be here due to work obligations, but he will be putting together the highlight videos from this week. So as Sterling gets all the video, we're uploading it to him in Evansville, Indiana, technically Newburgh. I'm sorry, Brian. Evansburg. And he will be editing all these little highlight videos that you'll see on YouTube throughout the week. And each day we'll play the previous day's highlights. So thanks, Brian, for doing that, even if you can't be here. The director's assistant back in the back always say that, you know, I need a good assistant director, and Ruth is my assistant director, but every good director needs a director's assistant. And Julie has sacrificed a lot, shall we say, for this to happen, because I'm up all day and night working on YOTA. Yeah, and she's not arguing. The first one, we had to spend our anniversary at camp. Yeah, and so, yeah, that, and then, you know, the second one we got Jamaica in, and then we had to drive here on our anniversary, so we got a little celebration in, but thanks to Julie, she's, you know, always jumping in and taking care of stuff, especially stuff that I don't think about, so thank you. Dr. Andy Maluzzi up here, KK4LWR, our Imagineer from Disney World, and you heard how we met, but he is here and has brought along his wife Christy, Mrs. KK4LWR, and so Christy's been making sure that everybody's getting to where they're supposed to be, so thank you, and been taking care of all kinds of stuff. And then Andy's brother is Tony, KD8RTT, who's back here, and every once in a while he gets a word in edgewise. But Tony is a pilot and works for Garmin. So if you have some questions about that kind of technology, Tony's your guy. Orrin is not here. He was flying in from Frankfurt, Germany. And then got to Newark, and then got stranded in Newark, and then tried to go back, and see, he's still trying to fight through everything, but
he's asleep right now, which is a good thing.
yes. But Rebecca is here, and we call Orrin and Rebecca Camp Mom and Camp Dad. So if you need a Band-Aid, if you need sunscreen that you forgot, or you know,
If you think
Yeah.
my mom would have that.
Mom would have that, Rebecca. So yes. So Becca's a good person to know. She also has all the emergency medical forms, as do I. So you know, if something happens, why try to find one of us. So that's your camp staff this year. And then we have, this is what makes me proud. This is the youth staff, and this page needs to keep growing. But we have people taking care of a lot of the aspects of camp, and again, we're trying to push as much of that to youth as possible. So we will be looking for your talents this week, and hopefully get some volunteers from this group this week to take on more of this. But Abby, Kimmy, and Katie are here on the PR team. I talked about Peter Fujisawa, who's our webmaster and music maker. He like actually records music. Blake is working with Case for December YOTA month. So you'll get to meet him on Friday on Zoom, and Marty in N1C has been helping you all figure out travel plans. And so we want to thank them. And then our hosts, Harry and Roger and Phil that you met, and Jason and Alan, Rob, Thane from RAC have been working hard to get this shack going and get everything moving with camp, and get the arrangements locally taken care of. So thanks so much to them. And then Darren, N3NYL, and Karen Bowman are here. They as parents, but also volunteering to be some chaperones. So thank you all for doing that. Here's a little breakdown of you all, and I know I'm already over time here, but I told Phil I was going to take part of his time. He wasn't going to use it, so I will try to hurry. Yeah, I need the egg timer, Roger.
Yeah.
So this is a little breakdown of who you are. 18 from the U.S., and there are the states, 2 from Florida, 2 from Tennessee, and then 1 each from the rest. In Canada, we have 8, 7 are from Ontario, 1 from Nova Scotia, 1 from Argentina, and then our guests, 1 from Croatia and Germany. And that's the age range, with the average age being a little over 18. So just a little few numbers about you all. And you know, I've talked about why. You know, I've done this. Oh,
Look at your text.
look at my text. Oh, working group, yeah. So yeah, but Ruth and Veronica, yeah, have been doing a fabulous job. So, and Ruth's been starting to take over a few of my responsibilities, and so that's helpful. But the reason that I spend this time doing this is because I know what it was like to be a young hand. I know some of the issues that you all have in feeling isolated and you know, not always having someone your age to talk to on the radio, and having different things happen, and maybe a little almost bullying sometimes off of frequencies, and all kinds of crazy things that happen from time to time. But this was me. I got my novice license when I was 5 years old, and we did it together as a family. And so there were times that, yeah, I was on CW, and you know, I would send age 5, and they were like, repeat, age 5. Did you say 5? Age 5, and then they disappeared. Like, 5-year-old can't send CW. Must be some illegal bootlegger or something. That happened a lot. That as soon as I said I was 5 years old, they were gone. And I don't want that to happen to you all. So that's part of it.
Yeah, I'm glad to say that transmitter on the right, on the picture on the right over
Yep.
there, that's the one that I have in my garage right now.
Excellent. Yeah. This one?
No, yeah, the one that you, yeah.
The TS520?
Yeah.
Yeah, I recently had it restored. I had to do it. It was actually a gift for my 6th birthday. And so I had to get it restored. I had to get all the caps put in it, but I still have it. Yeah. In fact, it's got a little burn mark on the top where lightning came in.
Nice.
Yeah, actually burned the top of it. Yeah. So that's why this is so important to me, is because I know those struggles. And you know, now that I'm years old, I still remember that, and I want you all to have a community that you can relate to and grow in, and that's what we're about. So, if I would hit the right button before I get choked up. So, as we say in the U.S. Congress, I will yield the remainder of my time. Phil McBride is president of Radio Amateurs of Canada, and Phil called me up on Ham Shack hotline one night. I think it's the only call I've ever had on Ham Shack hotline. But he calls me up and says, hey, you know, how can RAC help? How can RAC make this, you know, a better camp? How can we do this? And so we talked on the phone, and here we are. So Phil's going to say a few words to you and inspire you and everything. But Phil's done a great job taking over as president, and he's been rattling some cages and trying to move some things around to make ham radio a better place for you. And so, Phil, it's all yours. Do you want this? Or
No, it's
okay.
I can project. So I promise I will not bore you that long. We've all been sitting pretty quiet for a while. We want to go have some fun. But I very much like Neil, very much like all of you, I came into this at a young age. So I have been an electronics nerd for as long as I can remember. One of my earliest memories was my OPA, or my grandfather, teaching me how to solder with a 100-watt Weller soldering gun. Which at the age of 6 I then used to fix a lamp for my OMA, which showed my parents maybe there's something to this. From there, not knowing what amateur radio was at that time, I wanted to CB radio, which is where a lot of hams kind of start out. And I begged and I pleaded with my parents to get me the equipment I needed to get on the air. And they did, because my mother and my father kind of saw, maybe there's something to this electronics thing he's into. And once I got on the air, I made friends in my local community, and on that went. Now my introduction to amateur radio came not very long after. I had friends moved, this new family moved down the street, and they had 2 sons around my age, and I made friends with them. Not very long after that, a tower went up next to the house, and a bigger and an even bigger antenna went on top. During one of my first visits to their home, I was given a tour of the house, and one of the things that I was shown was the ham shack, where their father was sitting there talking on the radio to some far off person on the other end, on a radio that looked a lot more complicated than my CB. Around now, I was around 10 or 11 years old. Eventually, I got to talk to his father without his kids bugging me, and he explained to me, this is amateur radio, and this is, gave me a rough explanation as to what it was. And it was really cool, and I was really fascinated, but at the time, I didn't think this was anything within my reach. I'm looking at this going, this is really expensive. And my mother's never going to let me put this antenna up next to the house. It's not a chance. So, I didn't think too much more of it. Now, I don't think any of you here would know what Radio Shack is. I meant the kids. I know the rest of you know what it is. I was a regular customer by local Radio Shack to the point where the manager knew me by name. I was in there every week, usually just drooling and stuff because I couldn't afford to buy it. And one day when I was 13 years old, I walked in to see what was new, and on the shelf was this thing called an HTX 202. For those of you who don't know, that was Radio Shack's 2-meter handheld. I was intrigued. I wanted to buy it because it's a new radio. And I was told, you can't buy that, you need to have an amateur radio license. Now, go back to my conversation with my friend's dad. I'm like, oh, so I can't get it. So the store manager, he'd gotten to know me over the years, and he explained to me a little bit more of what amateur radio was. He said, well, with this thing, you can talk on things called repeaters. And you can talk on probably repeaters all over this part of Ontario. And there are clubs, there are actually clubs of individuals where people get together and that's all they talk about. And I was excited. I can talk to a bunch of people about radio that aren't my parents bored to tears. So, and the best thing was, there was no age limit to get your license. So, I put the radio on layaway, and I spent the next year studying and learning. My dad took me to my first club meeting. I was 13 years old. A lot of us have had the experience of being the youngest one in the room. I've experienced that my entire life. I'm 43, I sometimes still experience it. And you know, in my town, there were about 30 or so active members. One of those members, his name was Dave Hyde, V3YU. He was the friend, the father of my friends who introduced me to the hobby. He was there, so I didn't feel completely alone. And over the next few months, I attended the course, I studied, and at the age of 14 years old, I got licensed as VA3KPJ. So this was my beginning. Everyone in this room probably has a very similar story to that beginning. We all somehow found this community and we got involved. And our stories are all different, but the thing that brings us all together is that we found it and we're here. We're all radio amateurs. And I got involved. And once I got myself into, the breadth of this hobby is staggering. I mean, you get your license. We all go through that initiation process. And then what do? There is so much I could be involved in. It's extremely intimidating when you're 14 years old, in a room with people who are all a minimum of 20 years older than you, who know more than you, who are talking about things that you hadn't considered. I mean, I tried to map the hobby out, put everything into boxes. You know, I can do this, or I can do this, I can do this. And I failed. I gave up. I couldn't do it. I could be an operator, an experimenter, a builder, I could be a volunteer, I can concentrate, I can do voice modes, I could become a CW operator, which I never did. I could get involved in digital, I can operate on bands from DC to daylight, I could spend $500, I could spend tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we're not going to talk about that part because I'll deny everything. I can be a user and I can be an innovator. So all I knew at that point, I was a ham, I was a radio amateur. I was excited, I was proud, it was all really new to me, it was fresh. I wanted to share it with everybody. I'll tell you a little story. I took my hand, I got my license, I went to Radio Shack, I picked up my handheld, I programmed it with a local repeater. You guys know what an auto patch is?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have to explain it to anyone, we're not there yet. I took it to school, I'm in grade 8, I go to my French class, I'm wearing it on my hip. Again, giant nerd. And my teacher's like, what is that? 1994, so cell phones weren't a thing yet, at least not for those who, not for anyone my age. I said, it's a ham radio. I'm like, what can you do with it? So I prank called my school from class on the auto patch. I called the school, I asked for the principal, I said, hey Mr. Warren, it's Phil. I'm not going to be in school today. Why? I said, I don't feel it. I hung up. He came, 5 minutes later, came down because he looked me up. He came to my class and said, how the heck did you do that? I showed him. He was not amused and he laughed at the same time. But that's the kind of things, I was a kid, I was being silly. So, that was almost 30 years ago. And over the last 30 years, as being a part of this community, I've done things that I would not have been able to do before, okay? I've been on 2D expeditions. Everyone knows what those are, right? That was on my bucket list. I've been to St. Paul Island twice. I was the licensee for CY9C. Over 2016 and 2019, we've done over almost 100,000 QSOs. And that made me part of a team. I had to operate in a team of 12 people. I had to plan something logistically large. And I was on the other end of the pilot. I was the guy who was getting screamed at by 1,000 people, which is why I wanted to go in the first place. And I've made friends through that will last me my entire life. I've been able to go and visit weird places and operate weird places, and probably the top of my list is Vimy Ridge. For those of you who aren't Canadian, the Battle of Vimy Ridge was 106 years ago. Thanks, Dave. 106 years ago, it was one of the largest battles in Canadian military history. And in Vimy, France, there's a memorial. And in 2017, for the 100th anniversary of that battle, a group of amateurs, primarily from out west, set up a station there. And probably for the first time ever, peacetime radio signals came from Vimy, and I got to go there and operate. And I got to visit Vimy Ridge. That's not something I would have done if I wasn't a ham. I've been involved in providing communications during disasters, from the ice storms of '98 to 9/11 to Katrina and Sandy. I was involved in up here. I helped the Canadian Forces train their signal corps on HF radio. very similar in the United States and in Europe as well. The knowledge base for that doesn't come within their militaries, it comes from the amateur community. So you can actually help your militaries learn how to use HF radio. And these are just like some of the things that I never would have done otherwise. So my involvement in amateur radio, like I said, has introduced me to lifelong friends. Dave E3YU, my friend's father, he's my neighbor up the road. So he's got his giant tower with his TH6 on top, I've got my tower down there with my little mini beam. And people drive around going, what is this? You talked about your Elmer. A lot of us had an Elmer. My Elmer's name was John V3, and he's a silent key now. And he taught me things that I can't quantify. And it wasn't just about radio, it was about life. There are people who go through this life without a father. Amateur radio basically gave me two, my dad and John. And that's just two of the hundreds of people I've met, including some of you in this room who I've known for a while, and some of you I'm just getting to meet. So, youth involvement in amateur radio is an important component of keeping the service relevant and vibrant. Now, while the percentage of licensed youth is lower than other demographics, like the guys with gray or no hair, it is youth who are more prone to innovation and who are better able to embrace change. I know many radio amateurs in their 70s and their 80s who got their tickets when they were teenagers. Something that Dave Goodwin, who's at the back here, likes to say is that amateur radio helps you live longer because it keeps your mind going, it keeps you thinking. And those mental gymnastics, help us to maintain our faculties. Work better the younger you start. Now, amateur radio has always been one of the most diverse communities that exist because it's spread across the globe. The primary barrier has always been finances, but over the past 15 years, the evolution of technology, the lowering of electronic prices, the fact that you can buy a Baofeng for 35 bucks when my first radio cost me 350, that has opened things up and allowed more people to get involved in the hobby. And programs like this one, and other ones that are put on by the national and international organizations, are vital to keeping that, breaking those barriers down further and getting more youth involved at a younger age so that they have longer to spend. And amateur radio opens the doors in STEM. So science, technology, math, engineering, math, by recognition that we're just, for the most part, naturally, technically minded people who like to play and figure things out just for the fun of it. You add that to the fact that we network just by talking to each other, and you create this giant employment pool of people who could work in those fields. And that's where you're starting at today, in your teenage years. Speaking specifically about Canada, because I'm not sure about the US numbers, Canada's amateur radio community has been growing at a rate of double population growth for the past 30 years. To put that into perspective, Canada's population over the past 30 years has grown an average of 0.9 to 1.1% per year. Canada's amateur community has grown between 1.9 and 2.1% per year over the same period of time. So it's about double population growth. And despite the gray, or lack of hair, the average age of a radio amateur has not increased as much as the age of a Canadian. So remember, a lot of the gray hair that you see is because the Western civilization is getting older, which is a problem way, way above my pay grade. But that means that radio amateurs aren't getting old as the rest of us, which means it's helping us to live longer, right, Dave? So, go on and on and on. But basically, for all of us as radio amateurs, we have a duty to the service. For the Elmers, it's up to us to guide and teach the next generation everything that we know, to share our knowledge and experiences, answer questions, and ensure growth and development. For you young people, it's your responsibility to absorb everything and to put it into practice, but then to make it better. Innovate. Teach us new ways to do things. I promise you, most of us will listen. And then when your time comes, become Elmers yourself and start the process over again, like you're trying to do with your camp. The most important thing to do is while you're doing all this, have fun. Don't get bogged down in everything, just do this for the fun of it. I'll close by saying that apart from my parents, amateur radio was the single most positive influence during my journey through adolescence. And further, it has been a cornerstone of my personal development and growth, second only to the fact that I got married and I had 2 kids. For those of you who are attending as campers, I hope that this community provides you with the same resiliency and strength that it did me, and that the experiences that you have here this week form a foundation that will be with you for your entire life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Phil. We have some more that we need to do, but you can only listen to us OMs for so long. So, in just a minute, we'll take a quick break, and then we'll get back and finish up some of the things we need to do. But there's one other person that you need to meet, and that is Taylor over here. Taylor Law. One of our former campers, and he has the name the Shack Master. So Taylor will be helping you all this week with Shack and our remote operations. We're going to talk more about that after the break, but I just want you to know who he is, and he's going to be helping take care of your operating this week. And we want to make sure that each one of you makes at least one contact on HF before you go home. And so we'll talk about how that's going to happen here in just a little bit. But Taylor will be around to help, and of course Rose is here from ICOM to help as well. So that being said, take about 10 minutes, go to the bathroom, get a drink, stretch your legs, and be back here in about 10 minutes, and we'll get through the rest of it. Thank you all. For those of you watching online, yeah, keep watching.
I'm gonna try to do as much operation.